All right, there we go. There we go. We got Aaron Day sitting in the green room. 1 2 1 2. One's in the chat if you can hear my voice. One's in the chat if you can hear my voice. Let me get the link. Bring the link on over, hit the promo. Make sure y'all hitting the share button. Make sure y'all sharing this out to your audience. I got one of the goats of crypto joining me tonight. We're going to talk about a very spooky topic, controversial topic that a lot of people just ain't ready for. We're going to be diving deep into that conversation. Did I post that right? Okay, I think I posted that right. So Aaron can hear me good. I got that. I got my camera set up. Let's go in here. Let's go here. Make sure y'all hit the repost button. Make sure y'all hit the retweet button and all that good stuff. Call your mom, tell her the show is on. Call your grandpa, tell him the show is on. Call your retarded uncle, tell him the show is on. Call your gay liberal friend, tell him the show is on. Tell him it's up. It's lit. I don't think y'all ready for tonight's cast. I don't think y'all ready for tonight's cast. I did my homework. I did my research. I was reading up brownstone.org, the articles from Aaron Day. It's about 5 million words in this. It's a 28-minute read. I read it all, and I loved every word of it. We about to get started. How much time? 30 seconds. My heart is racing. My heart is racing. 30 seconds until showtime. I love this show. I absolutely love this show. Best stuff on the internet. Best stuff on the internet. Doesn't get much better than this.
Pepe. But what about his alter ego? Born from pages 143 and 154 of Boys Club. Dripped in confidence. Powered by vibes. This is Peasy.
Hello, friends. You're probably wondering, what is David holding right now? I'm holding Apu Apustaja, the most used meme on the internet. But it's not just a meme coin. It's a community with real friends. Friends who have uncontrollable fun together. Friends who have unconditional love for each other. And friends who rally behind the frog 24/7. Because who would choose to win alone in life when you can win with all your friends?
Good evening. Welcome to the nightly recap powered by the Gokhshtein News Network, your trusted source for politics, crypto, and everything in between that makes you question reality. I am joined by my esteemed co-host, the well-researched, the crypto nut himself, Aaron Day. What up, Aaron?
How are you? Thanks for having me on. Doing well.
Hey, man, it's a pleasure to find you. Looking cool, man. You looking jazzy right there, man.
These are my blue blocker glasses, so I'm trying to block all this dangerous blue light from all these lights and screens.
You got on the hater blockers. That's what we call them. Those the hater blockers.
Yep.
Is that a CRT screen behind you? What is that?
No, that's just a screen that has rotating images. It's a picture frame.
Oh, you fancy, huh?
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Thank you for joining me tonight. We have several news stories to go through, and then we're going to dive into some of your expertise. We're going to dive through some of your expertise even on the way here. Ethereum pushes past key level. It finally breaks through 4K. Are you happy about that, Aaron? Are you excited, or do you not give a damn?
I'm most interested right now in privacy coins. The thing that I'm the most concerned about is making sure that people have a currency that they can use that can't be frozen and seized by the government or third parties.
What about making money, Aaron?
Well, so the whole point of money is to have freedom. And so if the money that you are earning is something that can be easily seized and taken by the government or others, then that doesn't really give you freedom. So I'm interested in freedom money, which requires privacy and some other things.
But we got to do a little speculating on the side. We could work on freedom and get a little of this ETH money too, no?
We can. I mean, actually, there is a solution that just launched last week that can make your Ethereum private. So,
oh yeah.
So in that regard, I'm actually excited about the fact that people that do have ETH and are making money are going to be able to spend it privately. So I guess in that sense, I'm happy about it.
Well, tell me about that. What I don't know what the hell you talking about, bro.
There's something called confidential layer, and it allows you to basically connect your Ethereum to, it makes a tokenized version of your Ethereum that's private using another crypto called Zano. So you basically just plug in your Ethereum into this confidential layer, and out the other end, you get a privatized version of your Ethereum that you can then spend without it being tracked.
Really?
Yep.
Wow. Zano?
Zano. So Zano is, which, by the way, which is probably pretty good for speculation as well. But I'm a big fan of Zano. Zano is a privacy coin that also allows you to tokenize other coins and other assets and make them private. So I think this is a big answer to some of the technocracy that we're facing.
That's pretty zany.
Yep.
Zany Zano. JP Morgan signals shift ahead. JP Morgan expects the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates in September. Do you think that they'll lower interest rates in September? Do you want them to? Do you think they should? Where do you stand on all of that?
I mean, it's hard to speculate on what they're actually going to do. I'm a big fan of getting out of the dollar and being in a position where you're not, your financial wealth is not determined by some random group of bankers. So I like to move into areas where I don't care about what the Federal Reserve is doing. But I think they probably will lower rates.
Well, it does affect us, though, no? It's going to affect a lot of the pricing of things around us.
I mean, it will affect the pricing of things, but I think that we have to actually look at the fact that the dollar is in the process of collapsing. I mean, it's been collapsing for a long time, but it's lost like 11% of its value this year, 26% of its value since COVID. So lowering the interest rates will put more money into the system, but it doesn't solve the fact that the dollar itself is collapsing.
Collapsing?
Yep.
Well, if you had to put a date to it, what's the expiration date on this thing? If you had to just take a guess, put a gun in your head and you had to take a guess.
Well, the thing is, it's what it collapses into. So I think rather than a collapse, I should probably call it a controlled demolition. I think it'll collapse into a digital form of currency. So in some kind of economic crisis, we'll be handed a digital version of the dollar that will be worth less than the dollar is today, but that's essentially going to be the escape hatch. And that's sooner than we think. I think with this Genius Act and everything else, I think we could be talking in the next 3 or 4 years.
So wait, you're saying the escape hatch is the digital dollar?
Well, that's what they're going to present as the escape hatch. It's not really an escape hatch, because if our money is being and everything that we own is being tokenized and put into the system that can be censored and devalued, then that's not really an escape hatch. It's going to be presented as an escape hatch.
Harvard makes a big play. Harvard buys $116 million worth of BlackRock spot Bitcoin ETF. Aaron, how much of BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF do you have?
Zero.
Zero. Well, of course, you're a champion of Harvard buying some of this. This is a good investment for Harvard, no?
I don't know. We could do a whole story. I'm actually writing an article right now about kind of the history of Bitcoin and who's behind it. That's going to be a phenomenal one involving Epstein and some other people. I first got into Bitcoin in 2012, but I kind of exited Bitcoin in 2017 and have moved into this privacy coin area.
Epstein. Satoshi Nakamoto was at Epstein Island.
I don't know about Satoshi Nakamoto being at Epstein Island, but I'm going to put it in this article. There's this guy named Len Sassaman who I think might have actually been Satoshi. And there's a really interesting history of how this whole thing came about, which I'll put in the article. It's kind of a long explanation, but Epstein got involved in crypto in 2010. So a lot of people don't realize this. He was involved at, his St. John's Island. He met a guy by the name of Brock Pierce. And that's when he first got involved in Bitcoin. And, Epstein didn't give a lot of public speeches. And so that's why you don't see a lot from him publicly. But behind the scenes, he'd been involved in crypto for quite some time. And he actually pushed for BRICS to create a CBDC. He was actually behind a strategy for that in 2014. And then he actually pushed for and helped fund a US CBDC, all while Bitcoin changed from being something that you used as a currency to now this whole digital gold concept. He was actually involved in that whole transition.
Damn, Jeffrey Epstein was a Bitcoin player?
Well, he was a Bitcoin player, but I would argue in trying to hobble Bitcoin so that he could promote these other CBDC-like alternatives. It's a fascinating story.
You're saying he cut Bitcoin off at the road and then in order to steer people towards the central bank digital currency.
Yes.
Do you have a tinfoil hat near you?
I do not have. It's not a tinfoil hat. It's all documented. It's all researched. It's public. The information, the pieces of information here are public. It's just people haven't put the information together. It's crazy. It was shocking even to me. I wrote a book touching on some of these things 2.5 years ago, but we've found more information in the last probably 90 days that tell an even more horrifying story. So this whole thing with Epstein isn't just about kids and blackmail. It goes into a whole other wide range of things in terms of Epstein funding genetic engineering, funding alternative systems. If the US collapses, something called Game B, to funding Bitcoin and stable coins and laundering money for the part of the mafia. It's crazy, but it is actually documented.
Oh my God, you got security at that house by you?
Nah, at this point, he's dead,
So you said we. Who was we? Is there a team of researchers you have? Is a bunch of other guys that got autism that's doing this stuff? What's going on?
No, I mean, there are other people that have been researching this, and I've cobbled together some of their work. There's a guy named Dr. Jack Cruz, who is phenomenal guy on this topic and others. He's actually a neurosurgeon who at one point was involved with RFK and Maha, but got a little bit perturbed by what was going on. So he's researched some of this. Whitney Webb is another. Courtney Turner is another. So there are a lot of people that have contributed a lot of research to this topic.
And when are you dropping this? When can we expect this paper to be released, and where will it be released?
Next week, and hopefully it'll be next week. It's got to go through editing, and it should be at the brownstone.org through the Brownstone Institute. But I will say this, with some of the stuff, obviously when you make some of the claims that I make, people want to verify and fact check. I was actually just quoted in the Daily Mirror, and it took a week of going back and forth with lawyers, and then they had to consult somebody from the New York Times, financial area, just to make sure that what I was saying actually checked out. This is related to Howard Lutnick and Tether, and it did. Ultimately, it was all verified, but they are pretty big claims.
Lord Jesus, have mercy. When you get that article, can you send it to me? I'll cover it on my show.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I want to make sure we break that and get that out there into the ethers so everybody knows about it. Trump shakes up IRS leadership. President Trump fires the IRS commissioner, Billy Long. Billy Long has now been, you're fired, says Trump. How do you feel about the IRS? The IRS, you can't have no problems with the IRS, right, Aaron? Yeah.
I'm not a fan of the IRS. I have a friend of mine, Roger Ver, who is actually known as Bitcoin Jesus, is facing 109 years in federal prison for made-up tax fraud charges. And so, I'm not a big fan of the IRS. Now, this guy, Billy Long, he's an interesting guy. I don't know if you've seen clips. I mean, Trump appointed him. So this isn't one of these situations where he's coming in and getting rid of Biden's guy. He actually brought this guy in. And this guy used to be an auctioneer. And I remember there was some video clip in front of Congress where Laura Loomer was there and she was interrupting something. And so he just started doing kind of making the auction noises and everything else and used that to kind of add some levity while Loomer was escorted out by the police. So I maybe he's not a very good IRS guy, but he was at least humorous.
Oh, wow. Okay. This is crazy. Oh, my Lord. And so you're cool with Roger Ver?
Oh, yeah. Roger's a great guy. Roger's is not a well understood guy, but I actually learned about Bitcoin from Roger in 2012. And at an event here in New Hampshire, he got involved in Bitcoin in 2010. He was the first person ever to invest in Bitcoin related companies. He invested in the first exchanges, the first wallets, the first point of sale systems. I mean, he was before Silicon Valley. He was before Wall Street, like just him as an individual. And he's been committed to the whole purpose of cryptocurrency as being something anyone, anywhere in the world can use to make transactions on a daily basis without having to deal with central banks and central governments coming in and stopping those transactions and inflating the money supply. He's been passionate about that. So I'm a huge fan of him. And he was targeted as part of this Biden era crypto lawfare. Biden passed an executive order in 2022 pushing for a CBDC while also pushing for a complete crackdown on crypto. Well, if you're going to roll out a CBDC, you need to make sure that you get rid of the alternatives because people won't want a CBDC. So he targeted the people that were the most effective at introducing Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies to the world. So my other friend, Ian Freeman, is in federal prison for 8 years for made up charges, conspiracy to commit money laundering. He was actually found innocent of money laundering, but they got him on this conspiracy thing. But they sent 5 departments of the federal government to his house. They sent an armored Bearcat and tore down his wall. And they literally set this guy up. And in the end, they basically were saying, well, you were selling Bitcoin without a license. And, this is a guy who actually had a lawyer who wrote an opinion letter that said, you don't need a license. So they were setting him up. They literally had plants that were trying to entrap him, trying to get him to, illegally sell Bitcoin for cash for drug trades, which he didn't do. I mean, they actually weren't able to catch him on the stuff they were trying to make up. So they ended up just getting this conspiracy thing. And so now, he's in federal prison for 8 years.
Lord Jesus. Damn, that's crazy. And now, didn't Roger have like a tiff with the Bitcoin team or something like that, and then he split off and he created something different? Wasn't he Bitcoin Cash or something like that?
He was Bitcoin Cash, but the whole history of this is not well understood. He wrote this book called Hijacking Bitcoin. If you can see this, and so he didn't actually start Bitcoin Cash. There's a whole bunch of different thoughts about that. He didn't start it. Originally, there was a split, which, by the way, Epstein is kind of involved in this split as well. The whole purpose of Bitcoin was it was supposed to be something that you used for day-to-day transactions, and it was supposed to be something that competed with Visa and MasterCard. So there were supposed to be a lot of transactions using Bitcoin. And without going through all the stuff in the book, there were some people that kind of got involved and hijacked it. And these people were tied to the intelligence community, tied to traditional finance, another guy that was tied to the Bilderberg Group. And Roger, what was being discussed was this idea of increasing what's called the block size so that Bitcoin could handle more transactions. And so this turned into a whole conflict. And Roger didn't originally make a pick as to what to do, but he saw that people were censoring the people that were trying to talk about big blocks. And so the fact that people were being censored, that actually is what kind of caused him. He's like, whoever's doing the censorship is always kind of on the wrong side of history. So then he switched to promoting Bitcoin Cash, but he did not create Bitcoin Cash. And this has created a lot of people hate him for this, but it's just not understood. And unfortunately, he was arrested just 3 weeks after publishing this book. So this is a great book that outlines all of this and the whole history and all the drama, but nobody's heard about it because he was thrown into the same prison that John McAfee was thrown in. And I know you've done an interview with McAfee. He was literally thrown into that same prison. And Roger knew McAfee. In fact, they were friends, and they'd done an interview together and everything. And I thought it was kind of a sheer terror to throw him in that same prison because he's not a citizen of Spain. He was just traveling there.
Have you ever seen my Bitcoin debate with Shinobi and it was a big BSV versus big blocker versus little blocker? Did you ever see that debate?
No, but was Vin Armani in that?
He was in a follow-up debate.
Okay. I need to see that.
I think he was with he debated Connor following that one. Yeah, but I did a series of Bitcoin debates and we were talking about the big blocker, little blocker. So you're a big blocker.
I'm actually now for privacy coins. I'm not even weighing in on which flavor of Bitcoin. I mean, I think that I'm not even attached to Bitcoin itself. What we need is a private cryptocurrency that we can use to trade it, not only as a currency, but to trade other assets. So I'm not wedded. I'm not picking a religious tribe here.
So you don't even care if Bitcoin goes to $1 million. You just miss out on all those gains.
Yeah. If the government is using civil assets.
See?
I'm back. I saw some weird connection. I never have connection issues, so that was interesting. Can you hear me now?
See, there you go. I told you. Let's go to commercial break before they come arrest him. Let's go to commercial break before they arrest Aaron.
We all know Pepe. But what about his alter ego? Born from pages 143 and 154 of Boys Club. Dripped in confidence. Powered by vibes. This is Peasy.
Hello, friends. You're probably wondering, what is David holding right now? I'm holding Apu Apustaja, the most used meme on the internet. But it's not just a meme coin. It's a community with real friends. Friends who have uncontrollable fun together. Friends who have unconditional love for each other. And friends who rally behind the frog 24/7. Because who would choose to win alone in life when you can win with all your friends?
Aaron, Shedeur Sanders scored 2 touchdowns in the first half. Did you see him?
I did not.
Damn, you're a Shedeur Sanders fan, right?
I'm not much of a football guy. I'm too busy researching this crypto stuff.
He's like, I ain't got time for that fool's ball. Chat, how many touchdowns he got right now? Chat, keep me up to date on what's going on, man. Eric Trump has a word for the Bears. Eric Trump says, stop betting against Bitcoin and ETF. I'm sorry, stop betting against Bitcoin and Ethereum. And that it puts a smile on his face to see Ethereum shorts get smoked today. Eric Trump throws up a middle finger at Aaron Day. Damn, Eric Trump taking shots at you, bro.
Yeah.
Did you vote for Trump?
I didn't vote, but I did endorse Trump on the basis of pardoning Ross Ulbricht.
Oh, did you know Trump would be the guy to bring in the Stablecoin Act?
Well, I knew it was going to happen. Yes, it was this Cynthia Loomis, senator from Wyoming, and this was discussed before the election at the Bitcoin conference. So I knew he was on board, but I didn't know how bad the bill was going to be.
We're going to talk about that bill. I warned my audience. I said they're going to bring the CBDC in under Trump, So I let my audience know, but we're going to get into what you think is wrong with that bill. In the meantime, Putin tells the U.S. he will stop the war in exchange for Eastern Ukraine. What type of white man are you? Where's your lineage come from? Are you Polish, English, Swiss, Norwegian? What kind of white man are you?
I'm kind of all over the place in Europe. So a little bit of Switzerland, a little bit of German, and actually some Lithuanian. So it's all
Oh wow.
all around there.
I haven't gotten around to Lithuanian history yet. How do you feel about the Ukraine war and Putin and all that? Do you think Putin should be able to annex Eastern Ukraine? Do you want the war to end? How do you feel about it? Or you just not give a shit? You're like privacy coins. Fuck that war.
Well, I don't think we should be in the war. I mean, this is one of the reasons that I haven't had a personal bank account since 2019, and I don't believe in using the dollar, because when you use the dollar, you're funding these wars all over the world. So I don't want to have anything to do with the conflict at all, period.
That's the good take. You're a good man, Aaron. I like you. I like you, man. Pause, no homo. Highly anticipated meeting in the North. Putin will meet with Trump in Alaska on August 15th. Next week, Trump is finally going to meet with Putin, and maybe we will get your wish, Aaron. Maybe we're going to pull out of this like a nasty whore, you know? Maybe, hopefully. Are you optimistic?
One can only hope. I mean, you know, am I optimistic? I have a hard time being optimistic about politics in general. I mean, I thought this thing was supposed to be done on day one. That was the original claim, but I certainly, anything that can get it done, I'll be happy, and I will certainly celebrate it if it does get pulled off.
It's interesting that they're meeting in Alaska. You know, the reason why America has Alaska is because of the allyship with Russia. So it's quite ironic that we're having that meeting in Alaska. There's something else happening on August 15th. Chat, what was it? I covered it earlier today. Something else I'm looking forward to. There's a release. Oh, that's right. The new Denzel movie. You like Spike Lee joints?
I do. What is this movie? I haven't heard about this one.
They got a new one. They got an all-star cast. Denzel Washington. It's crazy. I don't want to spoil it too much. But yeah, it's gonna be a phenomenal film. I can't wait to see it. Next Friday, man. You got to go out and check it out. What part of the United States are you in, if you don't mind?
I'm in New Hampshire.
New Hampshire? Where is that? That's in America?
Yeah, it's in America. We're just a little bit north of Massachusetts, so we're in the Northeast.
Yeah, got black people out there?
Not too many, actually. To be honest, it's pretty white here.
I might be the first black man you've seen all week.
Well, that's not completely true.
Black guy you talked to all week?
No, not all week. No, but
Okay.
but it is rare. It is rare here.
Yeah. Well, tell your friends you got a black guy that you homies with. You know, tell them Hotep Jesus is cool, man. Tell the people in New Hampshire, chill out, man. I'm gonna come up there. What do you do up in New Hampshire? You like fish and go catch crabs or something like that? What do you do up there?
I mean, you know, the mountains. There's a lot of hiking. There's some skiing in the winter. You know, that kind of thing.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. Okay, a lot of white people activities. I love to hear it. I got to come out there.
You know, square dancing and
controversial Epstein image emerges. An image of Jeffrey Epstein wearing an Israeli IDF shirt has surfaced online. Are you aware of that? I just realized it now as I'm reading this.
I did see that. I don't, you know, this day and age, is it AI or is it real? But I mean, the ties with Epstein and Mossad and Israel are clear and well documented through Ghislaine Maxwell, whose father was a Mossad agent. So this certainly would not be a surprise at all.
Wait, you think that there is some possibility that Jeffrey Epstein was IDF or in cahoots with the IDF?
Oh, I think absolutely. And that introduction was made by Maxwell. Whitney Webb wrote a 2-volume book about this. And, well, this was not just this topic, One Nation Under Blackmail. We're a really well-researched book. And, yeah, Epstein had very clear ties. I mean, whether he was in IDF or not, he certainly was associated with Mossad.
You want to get really spicy with this conversation?
Absolutely.
Should the nation state of Israel exist, Aaron? Now I'm trying to get you canceled. Should the nation state of Israel exist?
Should it exist? Well, we shouldn't be funding it. I mean, whether it should exist or not, that's not really, that's above my pay grade, but we shouldn't be funding it. I'll say that.
We shouldn't fund it?
No.
But we helped create it.
We did help create it, and that was a mistake. And
Wait. Why? How you gonna say? Why was it a mistake to help create it, Aaron?
Well, I mean, you have the whole history of this with the Rothschilds and everything else. I mean, this
Shit.
whole thing, this is kind of a deeper conversation about the whole history of it. But I mean, it is what it is now. But honestly, if you look at what's going on, this is what's been fascinating in doing this research on Epstein and crypto. Is it's been kind of a broader set of research on Epstein and all of his ties. And so there really are ties to Mossad, and a lot of these blackmail operations are tied to Mossad. This even actually ties into the Bitcoin thing. So why are we funding this? Why are we funding people that are blackmailing people in our own government for Israeli intelligence? That seems like a poor strategy for national defense.
Well, let's walk down that rabbit hole. Blackmailing. In order to blackmail somebody, they got to be doing some funky business. They got to be doing some diddling. So they're guilty of something. So what they're blackmailing people? What are they blackmailing people about?
Well, it's a whole wide variety of things. One of the things that the research has revealed is there's this guy Meyer Lansky who was responsible for kind of building up the Jewish mafia and Las Vegas. And
wait, hold on. Come on, Aaron, can you slow down, please?
Sure.
We got sponsors for this show. This is a family show, Aaron.
Okay. All right.
You done brought up Meyer Lansky and the Jewish mafia. Why'd you have to bring up Meyer Lansky and the Jewish mafia? What do they got to do with all this, Aaron?
Well, they have quite a bit. It's been discussed that Epstein actually took over for Lansky for his operation, which was a blackmail operation. Lansky was actually blackmailing the FBI and J. Edgar Hoover. This is why I said this. You're gonna love this article. I mean, this is why I'm kind of getting ahead of it now, but this article is going to be fairly explosive, and this stuff is thoroughly documented.
Do you remember earlier when I told you to send me that link?
Yeah.
Yeah, don't send me send me the link.
You don't want the link?
I don't want those cookies on my hard drive. I don't want it in my browsing history.
All right.
No, I'm joking. Send that bad boy over. We're gonna cover it. But this is spicy. Epstein took over for Meyer Lansky.
Yeah, and so Lansky had a blackmail operation. So you know, it's not that Epstein just created all of this stuff from scratch. He kind of took something over that was already in full operation. And this thing has ties to World War II. It has ties to the FBI and the whole blackmail operation out of the FBI. I mean, it's incredible when you look into this stuff.
And you're going to be getting into all that World War II stuff in Article 2?
Yeah, I mean, not in a lot of detail, but the reason that it's important is there's an actual tie from Lansky to Bitcoin. And I mean, so the actual term money laundering comes from the fact that Lansky and his group were actually using laundromats as a way to clean the money. That's where the term money laundering literally comes from. And so there's a whole long story arc here between, you know, that money laundering and then looking for different technologies for being able to do that more effectively than obviously using bank accounts or just cash. And this gets into cryptocurrency. It's wild. It's absolutely wild.
You got autism?
I do not.
Are you sure? I think you on the spectrum. You got at least 0.1% autism. You on the spectrum, Aaron.
I don't know about that. But you know, I like to research these things. I mean, I've been involved with this for 13 years. So this is one of those things when I see friends of mine getting arrested and everything, I go down the path of figuring out why is this all going on. And when you keep on asking questions, you actually find answers. Most people don't ask questions.
So they started booking your friends. You said, I'm going to find out what's going on here.
Yep.
Well,
and then, you know, I found the reason they were going after them is because they were promoting the use of cryptocurrency as a tool for freedom. And they were making up charges. Why? Because they wanted to roll out a CBDC that can be controlled, that can be tracked, that can be programmed. And so this was a nuisance for that. You can't put out this money that nobody's going to want this, you know, tightly controlled money if they can use something else that can't be censored. So then I looked at, well, who's behind this? What's the whole history of this? And I wrote a book about it. I actually ran for president on this issue to raise awareness around the CBDC issue, because I think it's the biggest threat that we have to human freedom. Once they can program and track and censor your money, then they can add social credit systems and everything else. So if we don't stop that, then we can expect complete digital tyranny. So I've spent the last 3 years of my life just focused on this issue.
Well, Aaron, I don't know if you know this, but Trump issued an executive order banning CBDC, so we have nothing to worry about, Aaron. I don't know if you caught up to that yet.
Well, and sadly, he did that in part because, so New Hampshire is the first in the nation primary state. So I ran for president because I could have some influence here. And so Vivek Ramaswamy read my book about this whole topic. I had 3 conversations with him about it. And then he pushed Trump to come out against CBDCs the night before the important primary in New Hampshire. And it's probably been one of the worst things that could have ever happened, because now people are disarmed. People are saying what you just said. They said, well, hey, there's nothing to worry about. He signed this executive order. He reversed this Biden thing. And now I'm like, oh my God, he's doing something worse with this Genius Act. But because it's added more complexity, it takes more steps to explain it. And, you know, who wants to hear, a 4-hour conversation on how all this stuff works? And so now my job's become more difficult. But as far as everyone else is concerned, you have now more programmable, trackable money, and they're going to take that same technology and they're going to apply it to your stocks and your bonds and your 401k, and all your financial instruments are going to be able to be tracked in the same way and regulated by the government.
But a central bank digital currency is issued by the Central Bank of the United States, which is the great Federal Reserve, a beautiful institution. And now, instead, we're going to have it issued by private entities. So therefore, this is not the same, Aaron. This is coming from private institutions, Aaron.
That's what they say. And this is the whole trick with this, because this is the nuance. So it turns out that I don't like the central bank. The central bank is completely unnecessary. It's this third party that just prints money out of thin air, backed by debt, and then they charge interest. They're unnecessary. However, we already have massive amounts of financial surveillance on our money today. There's something called the Bank Secrecy Act. So if you go to set up a bank account, you have to fill out all these forms, provide biometric information. They ask you questions about, what do you do for work, and all this other stuff. They're collecting information on you to stop money laundering, so they say. Then they have tracking through the NSA through bulk data collection. The IRS can actually get your transaction information from the bank and use AI to analyze it. All of that exists today. We don't need any new technology. There's something called a suspicious activity report. This is an interesting one. So today, or for a long time, it's been the law that if you do a banking transaction greater than $10,000, a report is automatically sent to the Treasury Department. Now, understand what this means. Our money's already digital, so all this is already automated anyway. Well, Trump a couple of months ago said, hey, we want to crack down on illegal immigration, so we're going to pick 30 zip codes in Texas and California. And now for those people in those zip codes, they've lowered the threshold from $10,000 to $200. So now anybody doing a transaction more than $200, a report is automatically being sent to the Treasury Department. All this financial surveillance exists today. Our money's already programmable. Food stamps, EBT cards, that's programmable digital money tied to a bank account. So when RFK says, hey, in 8 states, you're not going to be able to buy sugary drinks, and everybody's cheering it on, well, that's more programmability that's been added to money. They've now said you can only use this digital money tied to a bank account to buy this set of products. And so while people are cheering this on, it's just adding more and more programmability and tracking to the existing system. So what they've done with this whole CBDC thing is they've said, well, the problem is that the central bank, the central bank isn't responsible for any of the financial surveillance. All of the financial surveillance comes from Congress. It came from the Bank Secrecy Act, the Patriot Act, the TARP, CARES Act. So the very people that are saying, well, we need to protect Americans' financial privacy from the central bank are lying, because they're the ones that pass all of the bills for financial surveillance, not the Federal Reserve. So the Federal Reserve is bad for a variety of other reasons, but financial surveillance is not one of them. That's Congress. So they've done this complete deflection. So now people think, now we don't have to worry about the central bank, but your money's already being tracked, and now that same tracking is going to be applied to these stable coins issued by private entities. And why this is a problem is if you tried to launch a CBDC, it would be unpopular. There would be resistance, right? People would be upset about it. You'd have a big public discussion about it, because this is what it was like before the election. People were very anti-CBDC before the election. And so it would take a long time to roll out a CBDC. Stablecoins are popular. Last year, there was something like $27 trillion worth of financial transactions done using stablecoins. That's more than Visa. And at the rate that it's growing, within 3 years, there will be more transactions in stablecoins than Visa, MasterCard, and even your bank doing direct deposits combined, right? So they've taken something that's already popular, and then they've given control over it to Congress, the people that pass the laws for financial surveillance. And then on top of that, they've given control to the Federal Reserve, because if you're one of these private companies issuing a stablecoin, not only do you have to comply with Congress's laws, you now have to go through an audit every month with the Federal Reserve. To top it all off, one of the main reasons they're doing this is to sell more debt, to fund more government, to fund more wars all around the world. So it turns out we have $37 trillion worth of debt. We just passed this one big, beautiful bill, which adds $2.5 trillion a year for at least the next couple of years, right? Where are we going to fund this? Nobody wants to buy our debt. China doesn't want to buy our debt. Japan's not in a position to do it. So what they've done is they've said, if you issue a stable coin, you have to back it now by U.S. treasuries and U.S. dollars. So you're forced to back your stable coin with those things. So the Treasury Department has said, we think we're going to be able to sell at least $2 trillion worth of treasuries, meaning we're going to be able to fund $2 trillion worth of debt just through this stablecoin legislation. So the short story of it is this: what do we get through the Genius Act? We get CBDC level surveillance from Congress added to a private solution, and it's all being used to fund more government debt, trillions of dollars of government debt.
Oh my Lord Jesus. Well, okay, let's break this off, because you just went from Meyer Lansky, Epstein took over from Meyer Lansky, and then the Epstein, was, trafficking Satoshi Nakamoto to the island. You covered a lot there. Oh my God. Okay, so let's back up a little bit. The Genius Act does what now? It because you mentioned 10,000 to 200. We're supposed to be covered by the Fourth Amendment last time I checked. So now you're saying that they've lowered this threshold to $200. Is this some sort of trickery? Because, at one side they're saying, hey, we got to do something about immigration. And they're like, well, we're going to do something about immigration. We're going to snoop on you. Does this seem like a little bit of a trick here that they came to this conclusion to spy and down to $200?
Well, the Fourth Amendment's been dead for a long time. That's just an automated report. I mean, there's already the IRS working with your bank and bulk data collection from the NSA. In fact, they can come in, shut down your bank account, and they issue something called a national security letter, which says you can't talk to anybody about the investigation into your financial affairs, including to a lawyer. So this already exists today. So the problem that I have is that what I've learned as I've been researching CBDCs is we already have basically a CBDC. Money is already digital. And the Federal Reserve actually creates money in a database, in an Oracle database. When the government issues an IOU, they actually create an entry in a database, and that's what the government writes all of its checks off of, is this database entry at the Federal Reserve. It's already a digital database. The money's already programmable. It's already sensible. And most people don't know that. People are sitting around saying, well, we don't want to become like communist China. But in reality, I've identified at least 13 different programs that are used for financial surveillance today, before anything involving a stable coin or anything else. And so people need to be aware of that. People need to be aware of how trackable your money already is today.
Okay. You just mentioned communist China. Does that make America not a capitalist nation? Would if somebody asked you, is America a capitalist nation, would you say it's capitalist, socialist, communist? Which one would you pick? It's
a cronyism morphing into technocracy. but it's definitely cronyism. It is not free market capitalism. And the funny thing about it is, because a lot of people say we don't want to become like China. They have a social credit system. We have a social credit system. It's called the tax code. Tax code is 75,000 pages long. It's 16 million words. So what is a social credit system? Social credit system is a system where, based on your activities, you get penalized or rewarded. Well, what is the 16 million word tax code? It's penalties and incentives. You get a discount if you buy these healthcare services through an HSA, if you get a mortgage, everything else. All of these are rules that reward or punish you based on policies set by the government. It's a social credit system. The only difference between the United States and China is we don't have an app. We have no transparency. And by the way, how can you possibly comply with 16 million words? So if you get it wrong, by the way, if you don't read all 16 million words, all 75,000 pages, they throw you in prison.
Damn. So you just described something maybe worse than China. At least China tells you you're getting screwed.
That's exactly right. So I'm writing another book where I'm going to explain some of this with very specific examples, right? I mean, you even look at, we provide tax incentives for green energy. Well, I mean, how is that different than how the social credit system works based on what kind of energy you use in China? It's actually, you can map these things. They're exactly identical. So the biggest problem that we have is people think that we're free, and they worry about what's going on in China and all these other places, not realizing they're already not free. And we're about to jump to this new level with these stable coins, because these stable coins are much more programmable. So now that it's under control of Congress, and understand, in the history of financial surveillance laws, which started in 1970, they've never reversed any of them. This only goes one way. And the thing is, there's an emergency, and the emergency may have nothing to do with the financial crisis, right? Why did we get more financial surveillance? Because of COVID. Well, we did. Did they reverse it? No, they didn't reverse it. So every time there's an emergency, somehow they have to add more financial surveillance. They never remove it. And then we get another emergency and we get more financial surveillance. Now that stablecoins are under control of Congress, if there's another emergency, Congress could pass an emergency bill that says, hey, from now on, if you're issuing a stablecoin, it has to be programmable, and you can only allow the stablecoin to be used to buy these products. And here's the list of products. I mean, they have now the ability to do that. That's how much control Congress has, and that's the history of what Congress does with financial surveillance laws. So people should be very worried about this.
So you mentioned COVID, and what happened with COVID where there's more surveillance? How did that come about?
Well, there was a lot of surveillance added to the banking system related to the PPP program. And then they added other surveillance. They actually added contact tracing, and they had some other things. One of the other things that they added, though, that I guess doesn't fit into surveillance, the Federal Reserve, without going into too much detail on how it works, it's a fractional reserve system. So it used to be that banks had to hold 10% of the customer deposits in reserves. So if everybody went to the bank to take their money out, they don't have it. They only have about 10%. And this is the way that the system is set up. It's called
they don't got my money.
They don't have your money. This is why they're always worried about bank runs, because if you got your friends together and you all went to the bank and took it out, you couldn't. And by the way, they also don't have very much cash on hand. So you would probably find, if you want to take out more than a few $1,000s, sometimes you actually have to schedule an appointment a few days in advance, because they actually don't hold much cash at all. But under COVID, they removed even the 10% reserve requirement. So now banks are not actually required to even have 10% in reserves. And this is because we had this big financial collapse, or they were worried about a financial collapse and everybody needed money and they didn't want the banking system to collapse. Well, they got rid of the 10% requirement and they've never put it back since COVID. So that's actually
So basically, the banks don't even need to have any money, no reserves, and no savings account at all.
Technically, they don't have to have any reserves. Now, there are some other safeguards in place where they do actually have reserves. They are actually still keeping that same roughly 10%, but most people don't even know about the 10%. And a couple of years ago, we had these bank collapses like Silicon Valley Bank and everything else. And, everybody thinks that they have this FDIC insurance where your bank account is insured up to $250,000. Well, when those four banks collapsed, they wiped through all of the reserves in the FDIC fund. So the system is really a Ponzi scheme, the way that money is created and the way money operates.
So
But on top-
FDIC is broke.
The FDIC is broken. They only have something like 2% of customer deposits or whatever in the insurance fund. So one big bank and that wipes it out. I mean, JP Morgan Chase has more than 10% of all customer deposits in the United States. The FDIC only has 2%. I mean, if JP Morgan Chase went under, then that's, it's more than gone and exhausted.
So what were you about to say after the whole FDIC thing? You said further what?
I don't know what I was going to say about that. Well, I mean, again, it's the money it's a Ponzi scheme. They print the money out of thin air based on these IOUs issued by the government, and then they put a little bit of aside for insurance, and then they try to convince people that this is a stable situation. And we get into these financial crises. You'll see somebody from the Federal Reserve. If you see somebody from the Federal Reserve on 60 Minutes or on the news trying to assure you, that means we're in much worse trouble than you could ever possibly imagine. That's the role. It's a con game. It's the head of the Federal Reserve is a con man who's there to try to, convince people that this Ponzi scheme is actually legitimate. So we had that Ben Bernanke guy in the last economic crisis, and he'd come there with his calm voice and his briefcase and everything else and try to be reassuring when behind the scenes, everything was absolutely blowing up and mortgages were blowing up. And then they bailed out the banks with, $800 billion plus, and nobody went to jail. And the only people that got screwed were the average person that had a bank account.
Yeah, that was a tragic time. Now, you mentioned freedom. It seems like there's some conflicting statements here. You mentioned freedom, and there is no Fourth Amendment. We have a constitution, Aaron. I don't know if you know this, but the forefathers of this country sat down and wrote something called a constitution, and now you're trying to tell me the constitution is worthless?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say since 9/11. I mean, you can go through the First Amendment. You can go through. I've got the meme with the Bill of Rights, and it kind of shows each one of at least the first 10 amendments. You can actually see where it's gone. I mean, the Fourth Amendment, again, we don't have any right to privacy. The Know Your Customer Bank Secrecy Act thing is a direct violation of the Fourth Amendment. The fact that you have to provide all of this information to track your banking, the fact that the IRS can pull this information from your bank, none of that is compatible with the Fourth Amendment. Another person that I know through the crypto community, a guy named Roman Storm, wrote code that helped make Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies private. He just spent 4 weeks on trial in the Southern District of New York and was found guilty of conspiracy to commit money laundering. He was looking at 45 years in prison, and now looks like he's going to get 5 years in prison. But again, why? He wrote software that protected financial privacy. Where's the Fourth Amendment in that?
Oh my God! You must be real fun at parties, Aaron.
I am. I'm a blast.
Somebody in the chat said the Constitution ain't constituting.
No, it is not at all. And people they're completely ignoring it. And the problem is that in an emergency, they can use emergency powers to justify anything. And this is where we get into these problems, a financial collapse or terrorist attack, whatever it happens to be. Then they add all of this stuff. This is where we got the Patriot Act and all of this surveillance and all of these changes. And then we got the TSA and everything else. Now we have Real ID. This is one of the things that's disappointing about Trump. It's not even just this stablecoin thing, which is a backdoor CBDC. Real ID was something that was proposed in 2005, and they weren't able to implement it for 20 years because essentially it's a digital ID. And, Trump gets in and, 90, 120 days later, it passes. So now everybody has to get a Real ID. And in 8 states, it's already digital. And now we have Trump authorizing Palantir to build a database on Americans. So all of that information that they're going to be collecting, Palantir, from all of the departments of the federal government is going to be attached to your Real ID. So I don't know how that fits into the Fourth Amendment either.
Wait a second. The Real ID is just a new driver's license. It's not that dangerous, man. And doesn't the government already got our information?
They may have the information, but it's siloed. So each department has pieces of the information, but they haven't consolidated it together in a real easy to use manner. That's one of the things that came out of Doge was We didn't get any of the cost savings, but one of the first things that they did was they gave Palantir access to IRS data so that Palantir could take the IRS data and, start building this database on Americans. So, and it's more than just a normal driver's license. The actual process of, and I've avoided getting a real ID, but I've read what you have to provide your birth certificate, your social security number, proof of where you live, all kinds of different information. And the government is now storing all of that information digitally. And now they're going to add this new data that Palantir is going to be adding. And in 8 states, it's already digital. So, people a year ago were concerned when it was Klaus Schwab and Bill Gates talking about a digital ID. People were worried about it. But then all of a sudden Trump gets elected and, we've got to fix the immigration problem or fix elections. And so now all of a sudden, after 20 years, digital ID goes into effect.
So it seems to me like, follow me here, tell me if I'm onto something. Trump gets installed and he's the perfect cover for a whole bunch of things that most people, if somebody else did it, would have made an uproar about. So it's kind of like a way of silencing the crowd because it's like, hey, Trump did it, so it's got to be good.
Yep. And that's exactly what's happened. So a year ago, people were really interested in what I was saying about CBDCs. I was doing workshops and everything else. And then I get all these people, oh, congratulations, you must be happy that there's no CBDC. And I'm like, wow, okay, they're going to actually implement it this year. But now how do I explain this? But it's worse. And it's not, by the way, it's not Trump driving this either. It's the people that are pushing this technocracy are people like Peter Thiel and Elon Musk and David Sachs. And the interesting thing is those 3 guys all work together at PayPal. There's a group, it's called the PayPal Mafia. I don't know why this all turns into a mafia conversation, but it's a group of people from PayPal that they've invested in common things and they've kind of stayed in touch and worked on various endeavors. And I think Peter Thiel's probably the biggest driver of all of this. He picked J.D. Vance. So people don't know the story behind this, but J.D. Vance, his first job out of college was working for Peter Thiel. Then Peter Thiel invested in J.D. Vance's investment firm. Then Peter Thiel invested $15 million in his Senate campaign. And then Peter Thiel introduced J.D. Vance to Donald Trump. So Peter Thiel has a huge amount of influence here.
So Peter Thiel basically made J.D. Vance.
Peter Thiel made J.D. Vance, and J.D. Vance holds the same political ideology as Peter Thiel. I mean, I don't want to get all into the details here, but there's this guy, Curtis Yarvin, and there's kind of a whole philosophy that's being pushed that's kind of this idea of a neo-monarchy, the idea of we need to have a leader that has more centralized authoritarian control. And this guy, Yarvin, has influenced Thiel and J.D. Vance and Musk. And so this is why so this really is an ideology. The ideology is to move towards a government system where, you basically have elites picking scientists and engineers to make decisions for people. That's essentially what is happening here. That's the big push. AI, digital IDs, and digital currencies are a major part of making all of that happen. And so this is why all of this is happening kind of behind the scenes at a rapid pace. I don't think Trump's there designing the strategy, but he just so happens to have his crypto AI czar, somebody that's part of this PayPal mafia and friends with Thiel. And now you have JD Vance, and then you have Musk that jumped in there with Doge. And one of the things that he did was he connected Palantir, which Peter Thiel is a co-founder of, with the IRS data. So that's one of the things that happened when Musk was in there, was actually connecting some of these AI systems to the government. And so,
but Doge was about checks and balances, auditing, trying to to save wasteful government spending, right? And now you're telling me there was another ulterior motive. Am I hearing that correctly?
There was an ulterior motive, and you can see it very clearly. So when Musk was campaigning for Trump, he was wearing this dark MAGA shirt, dark MAGA hat. Well, that actually means something. That's not like just, hey, I'm going to change the settings on my, computer from to dark mode. This dark MAGA represents the dark enlightenment, which is this whole political philosophy that I was talking about, with Curtis Yarvin. So now Musk has split off and he's formed his own political party called America's Party. And if you read what America's Party is about, the first two items are applying AI to the military and applying AI to the government to make government more efficient. But when you watch what is coming out of the America's Party social media, what they're talking about is, hey, we need to get rid of these corrupt bureaucrats who have been messing everything up. We need to bring in scientists and engineers to run the country. So they're not talking about protecting our freedoms. They're not talking about protecting our rights. They're talking about bringing in scientists and engineers to run government. And the first thing that they're doing is they're bringing in AI.
Oh my God. Oh my Lord Jesus, have mercy. Oh my, is this the technocracy you always be talking about? Is this what you're talking about?
It is. And people don't know what the word, it's not a word that you usually hear about, but this is an actual movement that started in 1930. There was an organization called Technocracy Inc. And you can Google this. You can find pictures. There's this guy, Patrick Wood, who's been writing about this for 40 years. He's written a bunch of books and he's really traced the roots of this. But these guys used to get together and they'd wear suits. I mean, it almost looked like kind of a Nazi thing. The men and women would all wear these gray suits that looked the same. It was even to the point where GM made a Technocracy gray color so that you could get a GM car with this Technocracy color. And the main purpose and the main thing that Technocracy Inc. wanted to do, and they were started during the Great Depression, so when things were in a really bad situation. And so their theory is, well, we need to change the entire economy. So having a price-based system where you buy things based on supply and demand, they wanted to scrap that and move to an energy credit-based system where the currency that you're using are actually energy credits. This idea started in the 1930s. Well, fast forward, they obviously didn't have the technology to do this. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have, ways of measuring these things. We didn't have digital currencies. This is what they are pushing now. Musk is a fan of carbon credits. All of these guys are fans of carbon credits. That's where currency is moving towards. So you create this hysteria about climate change, and then you say, well, humanity is going to wipe itself out unless we get control of carbon. So we'll make carbon the currency, and then we'll make a digital programmable currency based on that with a social credit system, and we'll have these engineers who are the only people that are smart enough to save humanity determine what this social credit system should be and how all these systems should work. And I know it sounds maybe far out there, but this is all well documented. And actually, I researched this. You can go to YouTube. You can look at something called a Doconomy MasterCard, DOCONOMY. This actually exists. People sign up for this. I thought it was a Black Mirror episode commercial the first time I saw it. This is an actual MasterCard that you can get. They partnered with the United Nations. And the way the card works is it tracks all of your carbon use. And when you use too much, the card shuts off and you can't spend money anymore.
Why would you want that?
So you should, you know what? I should have told you in advance. You should, if you pull up the YouTube video on this, it's alarming the way that they're pitching this. And by the way, this has worked with younger people. Younger people have been taught this climate alarmism to the point where kids are now like, oh, I don't want to have kids. They have anxiety. They've been told that they're the ones that are killing the planet. That kind of propaganda has worked, because when you see the commercial for this card, the card is like, oh, well, we need to stop rampant consumerism. And now here's a card that allows you to, basically make sure you're being, a steward of the environment, and the card automatically shuts off. Well, what's important about this is it's horrifying that it even exists. But then when you dig into it more, in order for it to exist, MasterCard needed to partner with all of these retailers and all of these companies to start tracking carbon, which they've been doing for years. You can actually also go to Google and type MasterCard Green Partners, and you can see a list. There are over 150 companies listed, which I'm sure is not the full list, but these are all big, BMW, major hotel chains, large international companies that have signed up for this. So if you bought an airline ticket lately, you may notice that it's been creeping in where all of a sudden you buy something and it tells you how much carbon you're using. Well, this flight is using this much. Yeah. Well, they're not doing this just to be environmentally conscious. They're actually building tracking systems in where they're tying all of your financial purchases to your carbon so that we can move ultimately to this carbon credit based system. So anyway, this is the direction that this is going in, and CBDCs or stablecoins are just one more step towards that, because once you've taken your money, where you start getting rid of cash, you make it all digital, you make it all programmable, then it's very easy. Some emergency comes up, and now instead of the currency being backed by IOUs from Congress, it's now backed by this energy credit system that they introduced. Technically, it won't be very difficult to implement because they've now, they're now using these programmable stablecoins. One other thing I want to say about the whole CBDC stablecoin issue is, when I was doing my research, what I found is there are 134 countries now working on CBDCs. These 134 countries represent 98% of the global GDP. So 98% of all of the economic transactions done on the world, the countries are actually working on a CBDC. And over half of those are beyond the research phase. They're actually working on implementation. Because of what Trump did with the stablecoin legislation, other countries are now accelerating their CBDC programs. So it's basically now countries competing for, what percentage are we going to have of digital surveillance money? So the EU has said as early as October of this year, they might roll out a CBDC. China actually was the first to roll out a CBDC, and they're continuing to do that. And so other countries, so now we have an arms race. And so globally, more people are going to get digital, programmable, trackable money. So that's one of the other bad pieces of news from the passage of the Genius Act.
Oh my Lord. But okay. All right. This is a lot. There's a lot. My head is spinning. There's a lot to take in here, Aaron. You got to slow down. AI. You don't like AI? You don't use ChatGPT? They just dropped 5.0 yesterday. You don't like ChatGPT or Gronk?
Me? I use a whole bunch of different AIs.
Okay.
For different purposes. I'll tell you one that I really like is it's called Enoch. I don't know if you know this guy named Mike Adams. He's known as Health Ranger. He's just created an AI that he's trained on, an alternative set of data. He's been doing kind of natural health and that kind of thing for a long time. And so he's brought in different data sets, and he's going to make a version of it available for free that you can download on your computer that you don't even need to have connected to the internet. So it's completely private. You can use it, you can get access to the information, and you don't have to worry about, whatever is going to happen with the company if they decide they want to start censoring information, which of course happens quite often.
So when you use, let me know about that. I'm definitely interested in this Enoch situation. When you use AI, what are you using AI for?
I use AI for research and for finding sources of information. So it's good for that. So, if I'm doing research on a topic, I'm like, hey, this is what I'm looking for information, provide the link to the actual source. Because I would never use AI for writing or for, it's horrible at writing, and then, or trusting what it says for research. It has to actually provide the link, and then you have to go to the link and verify it. The other thing I use it for is music. So when I do my podcast, I'll often play songs at the intro. So kind of like when you were doing this here, I mean, one of the problems with X is you don't have a link in advance. So I'm playing like 10 minutes worth of music at the beginning so I can send direct messages and retweet and share and get people all signed up. So it's actually become really good with music. I use something called Suno, SUNO. And it's frightening how well this thing works now in terms of for any kind of genre of music. And then I use it for images. So ChatGPT is good for images. Grok is better for research. And then sometimes I use it for coding if I'm writing code, which I try not to do that often, but sometimes I do.
What are you coding?
I do coding in Python, mostly just Python. It depends on.
Like it make your own apps or something to do things you need on your computer, or what? Or
yeah, to make apps. I'm working on a website now. This whole thing that we've been talking about with technocracy, it's really complicated. There are a lot of people involved. There are a lot of organizations and timelines. So I'm using it to create a site where I can create kind of a visual map where people can see what the connections are and see what the timeline is. So I'm using it for that. I actually used it to create a point of sale system for some of these privacy coins to create a plugin. So different applications.
You know what, Aaron? I Are you want to come back on next week after the article drops so we can talk about Epstein?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah.
Yeah. You'll love
right.
this. This is gonna be a power. This will be controversial, but it is fact based, and I will have all the research, so anybody can grill me on any of it.
Wow. Okay. And when does that link drop?
Well, I don't know. So I'm finishing up the article this weekend, but it still has to go through the editorial process at Brownstone. So I can't commit to exactly. I want it to be as soon as possible, but I don't know if there's going to be any hiccups or what the back and forth is going to be.
Right. Okay. All right. Let me know when that drops. We're going to get your next interview for Friday night's schedule, because I know the audience. One in the chat, if you want to hear about the Epstein stuff. Because we're gonna cover it on my show. I'm gonna dive through your article, make highlights. My audience knows how I do. You did mention you have a book published.
I do have a book published called The Final Countdown, which I'm updating, and then I'm writing another book called The Revolution Will Be Tokenized.
What's The Final Countdown about?
The Final Countdown is about the threat of CBDCs and what you can do to avoid getting stuck in this digital system. So this is what I've been focused on for 3 years is, wow, okay, if they roll out these CBDCs, what are people going to do? So the first half of the book is, here's what CBDCs are and digital IDs, and here's who's behind it, and here's kind of the history of it. The back half of the book talks about what you can do to get out of the system. And so it talks about using cryptocurrency. I'm trying to find it here. I use crypto, gold, and silver. So it's a kind of a step-by-step guide on how to get cryptocurrency, how to live on cryptocurrency, and also how to use gold and silver, because that really is the way out. It's the dollar, it's fiat currency that is going to become either a CBDC or these controlled stablecoins. So the root of the problem is money that's issued by the government, backed by nothing but debt. Turns out that's never worked in human history. All of these government-backed currencies have failed. It has a 100% failure rate. In fact, the average government-backed currency only lasts for 27 years. Even the dollar is the global reserve currency, but if you actually look at the previous 5 global reserve currencies, they only lasted for 84 years. But most people have never been exposed to this information. And for most of us, our entire life, the dollar's been the global reserve currency, and we've never questioned otherwise. We've just assumed that's always how it's been. This is always how it's been, always how it will be. And no one even thinks that it could be possible that the dollar could disappear. But the truth is, based on history, it's kind of guaranteed. And there are 7 main reasons that these currencies fail. And the dollar's, flashing bright red on all 7. So I'm for getting out of money controlled by government.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm speaking to Aaron Day. His name is Aaron R. Day over on X. Aaron with 2 A's, R-O-N, the letter R, D-A-Y. Aaron, thank you for joining me tonight. You've been a complete firehouse of information.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. This has been great, and I look forward to coming back when this Epstein article drops.
Let me know when the Epstein article drops. We're going to dive into it, man.
Will do.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's been another fantastic episode of the Friday Night Recap with your host, Hotep Jesus. I'll see you next week. Shout out to the GNN squad. Later, Aaron.
Later. Bye.
We all know Pepe. But what about his alter ego? Born from pages 143 and 154 of Boys Club. Dripped in confidence. Powered by vibes. This is Peasy.
Hello, friends. You're probably wondering, what is David holding right now? I'm holding Apu Apustaja, the most used meme on the internet. But it's not just a meme coin. It's a community with real friends. Friends who have uncontrollable fun together. Friends who have unconditional love for each other. And friends who rally behind the frog 24/7. Because who would choose to win alone in life when you can win with all your friends?